Hi, welcome back. I'm Chava, clarity coach and practitioner of Chinese medicine, here to answer your questions about life, the universe, and everything from a reasonably unique perspective. Today's video isn't exactly a question. It's a follow-up to last week's video, where in last week's video I talked about our internal defense mechanisms that can come into play when we're in danger of experiencing emotional overwhelm. And I had what I felt like was a reasonably important thought to follow up on that. So you may want to watch the previous video if you hadn't, for a bit of background. But one more thing that I wanted to say about situations where we find ourselves rejecting other people's perspectives or trying to downplay what other people are saying has to do with a defense mechanism, which is, it's a psychological defense mechanism, but it's a psychological defense mechanism that protects us from physical injuries rather than from emotional overwhelm. So I don't know if you've ever seen The Big Bang Theory, but I think pretty much everyone that I know who's my age has seen most of them. And in one of the episodes, which seems very, very interesting in retrospect, the character named Penny has a cold, and character Sheldon is afraid that she's given it to him because he interacted with her the day before, and she said that she couldn't have given it to him because she feels fine. And he tells her that if the cold was only contagious after symptoms appeared, it would have died out millennia ago, because Homo erectus would have worked out that you need to kill the person with the stuffed up nose before they infect the rest of the tribe. And so the thing is that, like, it's played for jokes, and then of course it turns out that she's sick too, and everyone has a cold, and it was probably a lot funnier before COVID. But the thing is that we do, in fact, we learned that. We do have instincts that tell us to reject, to push away, to avoid, to kill if necessary, anyone who triggers what's called our behavioral immune system, where our behavioral immune system is the system that causes us to not do things that could get us infected. And so if you think about, they do studies doing gross things like offering people chocolate, telling them it's chocolate, explaining it's chocolate, showing them the package it originally came from, but that has been molded to look like poop, and seeing if people are able to eat it. Most people aren't. We avoid things that are connected with contamination. So I think that most people, if you're, to unloading the groceries and a box of tampons comes open and you scoop them all up, there are people who would wash their hands after touching a clean wrapped tampon before moving on to handle the food, because it's connected with something physical, with something hygienic, with bodily fluids. And we have these instincts that prompt us to be careful in very specific ways when there's a possibility of contagion. And this is something that I've been thinking about, and I ran across a very interesting article about it that I will link to below, in the light of COVID and how people react to other people who are behaving in ways that they see as unsafe, whether that's getting vaccinated or not getting vaccinated, or wearing masks or not wearing masks, or opening windows or not opening windows. When we see someone else as a possible carrier of contagion, whether it's because they're not vaccinated and so they're more likely to carry COVID, or whether it's because they are vaccinated, which means they had, foreign materials injected into their body, and I don't know how that might play out. our brain intentionally tries to make us see them as not human, as something not deserving of empathy, so that we will do whatever is necessary to protect ourselves, our family, our tribe from the risk of contagion, which is a serious risk. Leaving aside COVID, the Black Plague wiped out, I think the estimates are a quarter to a third of the entire population of Europe. And I don't have statistics off the top of my head on what it did in Asia. There's an estimate that 90% of Native Americans were killed by infections that were spread from Europeans. Contagion is a serious issue. It might be one of the most serious issues that our species has ever dealt with. And we have deeply, deeply, deeply ingrained instincts whose job is to protect us from infectious diseases. And those instincts don't just express themselves in how we interact with things, with objects, with foods that may be infected. They also affect how we interact with and how we perceive humans who we might be at risk of catching something from. And so one thing that I wanted to add on to my previous video, and when I'm talking about how sometimes when we're feeling like we're not experiencing empathy, we can't experience empathy in situations where we think we should, if we're just shutting off and we're blocking it out, or we're feeling resentful because people are piling their problems on top of our problems, so that's a sign of emotional overwhelm. But if we are experiencing a lack of empathy towards people, towards someone who's sick and didn't get vaccinated, or towards someone who is taking precautions that we think are ridiculous. If we're experiencing a lack of empathy and that's coupled with negative and especially aggressive feelings towards the person who we're having this reaction to, that may be a sign that it's not exactly something psychological that you're reacting to, but rather something is triggering your fear of contagion and is prompting a completely different defense system to come into play. And so, like I said, I'm going to link to a very long and good article about the behavioral immune system. And I don't know, I'm not a good enough psychologist to explain all of the potential effects and all of the ways that we can work with this. But when you read something or see something in the news or hear a story and you find yourself experiencing a lack of empathy coupled with aggression, that's a sign that your brain has switched you from a stable, healthy, open ability to process things cognitively into a behavioral mode where you are running much more on instinct and much more on a primal need to defend yourself and your tribe. And that means that when you're experiencing those emotions, it's a sign that you are less able to appropriately take in facts, to really cognitively process the things that are going on around you. It's a sign that you may not be able to trust your reactions are the best, healthiest, safest in light of how we want to interact with the people around us. Because it's such a deep instinct that it's much more like you're switching over into fight, flight, freeze. Only in this case, it's not even fight, it's attack, but from a distance. Try and do whatever you can to destroy the thing or the person which has triggered this instinct without even coming close, without risking contagion. And that's not a healthy place to try and make decisions, to try and set policy, to try and have a discussion about in-depth, complicated situations where you'll probably need some ability to cognitively process things like statistics. So I think that's something that's very important to know in general, and certainly in light of COVID and in light of how we all find ourselves behaving in relationship to other people at this point in time. And so I thought it was very important to share that as a perspective that you should know about. So, like I said, I'll put a link in the article below, and I promise that barring another global catastrophe, next week's video will be happy and optimistic and uplifting. So stick around, and you can subscribe in order to get an update when the video comes out. It should be coming out next Thursday, the holiday of Purim. And so we're going to have a fun holiday episode. In the meantime, take care of yourself, stay safe, stay sane, and I will see you next week. Bye.